Hi, my name is Erica Fearon. I met Katie in college. We were roommates for a while. And now we're both burgeoning artists, and I'm so proud that we're pursuing our lives. Yay.
And thank you for
Great.
talking to me today. And as you mentioned before this video, you're pursuing a million different kinds of art and mediums. So what would you like to talk about today?
So I'm going to talk about a somewhat long lost art form, which everyone used to know how to do, which is sewing. And it's kind of related art form, fashion design, which are very different. And a lot of people don't respect how different they are. But yeah, it's pretty much a long lost art form at this point. It was a shock to me to learn that, for example, if you pull up a pattern from 100 years ago, it pretty much had no instructions because they assumed everyone knew how to do everything, because they did.
Oh my God.
And patterns nowadays come with, some of them for beginners will come with, I kid you not, 20 hours of video instruction showing you step by step everything, so it's foolproof, because no one knows how to sew now. Yeah, so it's crazy how things have changed, not just because of technology, but our expectations. So yeah, so I've been spending, since March, I've been spending most of my time in quarantine learning how to sew, having not really ever touched a sewing machine before. And so it's been a huge crash course. I have destroyed many things. Horrible, ruined.
What caused
Yeah.
you to want to pick up a sewing machine and get to learning? What was kind of that thought process?
I've just always loved fashion. I've loved wearing fashion. And I've always thought that maybe that wearing would translate into wanting to make stuff, because I love, in some respects, I love product design.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many different kinds of products that you can make. So it's like making each kind is a different feeling. And more than I ever expected, sewing has turned for me into product design, because you do go through the design process each time, and I'm not going to quote the process well, but you're brainstorming what to do with all of your fashion sketches and with draping the fabric. You're doing a bajillion prototypes to get design details and fit. And so it's such an involved design process. And it turns out I love working with my hands. So I'd say I pretty much kind of picked it somewhat randomly. Like, I thought I might like it, but I kind of picked it randomly, and it turned out really well.
So
Yeah.
what was the first thing you made, and what are things that you're making now that you like?
My first project was, now I realize how difficult of a first project it was, but I chose to make a corset of my own design. So I looked at a few patterns. I could hardly read patterns at all, because, mind you, I'd never tried reading a pattern before. And then I turned out to make a it was a corset vest. So it had shoulder straps, it had bra cups. It was a load-bearing corset, so it did cinch in my waist by a few inches. Oh God, it was so hard to make. In retrospect, I think, if I was making it now, it would fly by, because I understand the principles behind it, but it was ridiculous. And it actually turned out pretty well. It actually is totally wearable. Wish I had it here to show you, but I moved, unfortunately. So it's hidden away, but yeah, it actually turned out, it's totally wearable. It cinches my waist a little too much, so I can't really eat anything.
Oh,
But I mean, that's kind of the point of a corset, but yeah, it turned out super well. I did not destroy that. Yeah, and so now I'm just,
the first thing you made, when I was
yeah, I know.
when I was learning how to knit, the first thing they tell you is start with a scarf, because it's one piece of fabric. It's
Yeah, you can just
not screw
go.
it up. And you chose
Mm-hmm.
literally the hardest thing, probably.
Yeah, well, I know. I'm fucking crazy. I think it's just the naivete of someone new who doesn't know what's up, Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, but as I learned later, it's actually not the hardest garment that you can make. I'd say it's up there, because garments that have like complex structure or complex draping, those are the hardest ones. So of course it's The difficulty level, of course, at a basic one is actually not very high. What I'm trying to do next, and I'm waiting on an order of fabric from the fabric store, but I'm trying to do next is learning traditional tailoring techniques to make a blazer, which is actually one of the hardest things that you can do. I'm very nervous, and I'm expecting to destroy a lot of it and have to redo it, which is fine. But yeah, doing like traditional tailoring and unusual draping is probably the worst. I'll get around to it one day, but I'm very excited.
So would you say that fashion design is like a larger overarching thing, and then the sewing is like the engineering of it? It's like the how to?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like the how-to, but they very much go hand in hand, which is why it makes me so sad to see. I'm gonna rip on celebrities here, but it makes me so sad to see celebrities that are like, I'm a fashion designer, because in reality, what you're probably doing is describing a garment to someone who's then sketching it and then saying, okay, I'll figure out how to make this work, and they're making the garment. But the actual construction and design of the garment is so informed with each other. You can't pull them apart.
Right.
The more I learn how garments are constructed the way they are due to just the limitations of the materials.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, I tried to make a faux leather jacket, which I sent you a picture of it in construction, which is a bunch of chevron stripes of gold and black faux leather, and the design and the fit worked perfectly.
Right.
From sketch to final construction, it was great. I, however, chose the wrong seams. I chose the wrong type of interlining fabric, not even the leather. I just made some technical choices that didn't fit the garment, and the structure just fell apart. It didn't hang properly. It had weird ripples, and it was really disappointing just from issue of fitting the fabric to the design.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why it's like you can't pull apart the technical aspect of fashion design.
Right.
Even though in a lot of ways, like, you can become an expert sewist without ever learning to design anything.
Right.
You can draw clothes that are fantastical and amazing and be horrifying to put together, but really mastering how the two feed each other is a beautiful art form. It takes many decades, and I crack up at people who are learning, like friends of mine who are like, oh, you're learning to sew, like, show me all of your amazing clothes you've made. And I'm like, you have no idea how hard it is.
Because each piece really is, like, it is engineering, right? You are engineering with fabric. You are, and I think part of the thing that's interesting about sewing is that you get to tailor things to your own body. And
you learn how weird your body is.
Oh my god. And now that we're so used to fast fashion, like, yeah, I might know I'm this size on top normally from these brands, but you don't, we've absolutely lost touch with an understanding of how the things around us are built and created. And I think it's incredibly cool that you are now like going back to basics and piecing apart this thing that's like a very integral part of your day. Like, everyone gets up and wears clothes, even in quarantine. We're all usually wearing some amount of clothing. Hopefully, maybe.
God, well,
whatever. So.
You do you. Have fun.
But that's super cool. So do you have any kind of final remarks, advice to anyone willing to pick up sewing, like, at all?
I think more people should try it. I think some sort of level, it is so important that we have some sort of level of understanding of the things that we use every day. Whether that's doing an intro coding class because you use your phone every day, trying sewing, trying to construct a chair, learning to cook one good meal, just some understanding of the things that are in our lives every day, I think would help give us some perspective. And also just, perspective on, I guess, respecting experts, especially in this time. The more I learn about each of my art forms, the more I respect people who spent decades mastering these skills, even though they're skills that we don't think are relevant in our lifetime anymore, such as sewing. They actually are in a lot of ways, and you know, the people who've mastered them deserve a lot of respect.
Amen to that. I think
Yeah.
that's a great place to leave off. So thank you for this conversation, and I look
Yeah.
forward to seeing all the stuff you work on.
Oh, thanks, Katie.